Hello, everyone, and most welcome to 1892 of the H series. We will today continue with Francis Y. Lynn's Wittgenstein's private language investigation, or alternatively, Wittgenstein's private language argument, the PLA famously known. Last time, which was, let's see here, 1890, we went through how we could connect the dots, so to speak, between different memories. Would it be possible to, within oneself, select, discern whether a certain memory is the same memory as another memory? Or why not, a certain perception is the same perception as another one, and be able to do that from the inside, so to speak. Is that a possibility? Can you tell A from B from the inside only? This is also clearly depicted in the beetle box example. We have an inner beat box or box for ourselves, and it contains a thing, a beetle, but we have not seen any other beetle, and we don't share any communal beetleness or of the sort. Can we then be sure that we have the same thing as others when we say beetle? Lynn used earlier on red as an example. Can you spot red several times, so to speak? How can you be sure it's the same red? I think a very good argument there was that there is hardly any chance on earth that you will see the same redness twice, from the same angle, intensity, lightning, neural condition in the eye, pressure in the eye. You can add a gazillion factors that somehow would tell that is certainly the same thing. I think that was, for my ears, maybe the strongest argument. And to say that I have an inner sense of what something is, I know it, is the same as saying he has a wallet, but I don't know if it's empty, filled, or containing debt. It lacks meaning to say anything like that. It's a Peter. Usually Wittgenstein says it's a piece of nonsense. to enter into sense or meaning, things needs to be done several times. There is no possibility of following any rule only once. They need to be repeated over time to gain their meaning, their sense. And there's also a very fun remark from Francis Violin. I did like that very much. And there is, when you talk about private experience, no way of saying whether it was you have 100 private experiences or just the one. Or 1,000,000 private sensations. You have them within yourself, but you can't discern one from the other. Obviously, you realize pretty soon, hey, I can't even number them up. There is no difference anymore. You will drown in an ocean of pure sameness or difference or nothing of the two. In the end, it will be a much lesser degree of both difference and sameness. And I think that makes perfect sense. Language is to be repeated. It's not one thing off, one standoff. Let's see, I'll continue where I've left off in 1890. Just after a quote from Philosophical Lectures, PL. In this remark, Wittgenstein uses the private word pain for illustration, substituting pain with S. The passage says this: if the diarist has S1, S2, S3, at different times, and he writes S each time, then there is no way to tell whether these sensations are one object or 100 objects. In other words, there's no way to tell whether these sensations are all of the type S or of 100 different types. This throws light on the meaning of remembering the connection right in the future. The diarist wants to keep a diary about the recurrence of a certain sensation. At T1, he has S1 and he calls it S. He thinks that he has made a connection between S and this certain sensation, so that when it occurs again, he can also use S to refer to it. Could we make it a bit larger, the text? 250 maybe. Maybe add some more if it's okay. 230, 240. Yeah, try that. 230. He thinks at T1 he has S1 and he calls it S. He thinks that he has made a connection between S and this certain sensation, so that when it occurs again, he can also use S to refer to it. The problem is with the expression this certain sensation, as Wittgenstein explains in the above remarks. There's no way for the diarist to tell whether a future sensation is an instance of this certain sensation or of another certain sensation. This is why Wittgenstein says that the diarist cannot remember the connection right in the future. This also casts light on the meaning of a frequently quoted remark by Wittgenstein Wittgenstein. The temptation to say, I see it like this, pointing to the same thing for it and this, always get rid of the idea of the private object in this way. Assume that it constantly changes, but you do not notice the change because your memory constantly deceives you.
Your memory constantly deceives you.
Suppose that someone looks for 100 times at an object, which for some miraculous reason constantly changes. Suppose further that he suffers from some memory problems, so that he thinks he sees the same object each time. Scary. In this case, he might well be tempted to say, I see it like this, or to invent a name, for instance, S, and say, I see S each time.
I see yes each time.
But here, his word this or S is problematic. Grammatically, it shouldn't refer to a certain object. But in this case, 100 objects might have been involved. Involved. That there is one object there which the person sees at all those times is an illusion.
Illusion.
Illusion. The diary case is analogous to this. The private diarist thinks that his S refers to a private object, a certain sensation, but it is senseless to speak of a certain sensation here. The private object is a grammatical illusion, and it must be got rid of.
The private object is a grammatical illusion. Dun, dun, dun. It must be rid of. Dun, 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 dun.
Rid of.
Rid of. Rid of. Rid of. Rid of. Private object.
3. Wittgenstein on private language in LPE and PL. A private language consists of words, names, for instance, S in the diary case, the diarist may write S, T, U, V, W, etc. in his diary. And these words constitute the language the diarist is using. But is it a language? This depends on what language is. Since private language consists of sensation names. The question then becomes whether such names are really names. This then turns on the grammar of name. On what occasion, under what conditions would we call a sign a name? A name.
My name. My name. What a lovely sound. Name.
A name. In LPE, Wittgenstein writes, consider the proposition. He makes sure what it means to him by ... Would you say the word had meaning to him if it meant something else every time? And what is the criterion of the same color coming twice?
Twice.
What?
Alliteration. Alliteration. What is the criterion of the same color come twice?
Yes. Good. if we describe a game which he plays with himself, is it relevant that he should use the word red for the same color in our sense? Or would we also call it a language game if he used it anyhow? Then what is the criterion for using it in the same way? Not merely the connection between same, color, and red. In these two remarks, Wittgenstein questions the nature of the private diarists. Symbol S. Red, toothache, or pain. If the diarist had used it without a criterion of correctness, that is, he used it anyhow, at will, or used it to refer to something else every time.
Every time.
Then would we want to call it a name? Of course, the question is supposed to be rhetorical.
Rhetorical.
And Wittgenstein's answer must be no, we would not want to call it a name. So according to Wittgenstein, a sign is a name only if there is a criterion of correctness for using it. Use it. This is a grammatical statement. If the diarist did not have a criterion of correctness for using S, that is, if he meant by it something else every time and used it anyhow. then this sign would simply not count as a name.
Aja paja. Not count as a name.
From section 3.2 above, we know that the diarist has no criterion of correctness for using S.
Yes.
S. S.
Yes.
So S is not really a name.
Not really a name. Not really a name.
And does not deserve to be called a name, although it looks like a name.
Although it looks like a name. Antichrist. Although it looks like a name.
As the private language consists of such signs, it looks like a language, but it is not really a language and does not deserve to be called a language. Wittgenstein expresses this point as and here we are on the brink of a discussion about the language in which someone speaks about his experiences and which is intelligible only to himself.
Aja paja. Only to himself. Intelligible only to himself.
Only. In this place, I shall not enter into this discussion, which belongs to the problems of idealism and solipsism. I wish to say only this much, that here no language at all is being described, even though it appears to be.
Here no language is being described at all, even though it appears to be.
So private language is an illusion. It is a grammatical illusion, because when we examine what counts as a name or a language, a private name turns out to not be a name, and private language not to be a language.
Mm.
A language.
Mm. Cliffhanger.
This is a matter of grammar logic.
Grammar. Logic.
This point can be made clear by considering the following case. Suppose that someone coins a color named green red to mean red and green all over simultaneously. But there cannot be such a color once the meanings of red and green are fixed. It is just impossible to talk of green-red, which is a logical / grammatical contradiction. Green-red is therefore a grammatical illusion. Illusion. There can no more be private languages than there can be the color green-red. In fact, Wittgenstein draws an explicit comparison between the two cases, as he writes, "The private experience is a degenerate construction of our grammar. Comparable in a sense to tautology and contradiction. And this grammatical monster now fools us, and we wish to do away with it. Away. Excuse me. 4. Conclusions and discussions. In this paper, I provided an interpretation of Wittgenstein's remarks on private language. Based on a close study of some relevant passages in LPE and PL. The major results of this paper are as follows. First, remembering the connection right means re-identifying sensation types. This reading has ample textual evidence from LPE and PL. Second, the reason for no criterion of correctness is this. Private sensations are severed from the physical world.
Oi, oi, oi.
No physical objects, no observable behavior, no inner mechanisms, no external devices can be used by the diarist to tell whether some sensations are of one type or different types. The analogy
Analogy.
between seeing red in the public case and feeling S in the private diary case does not hold.
Does not hold.
See section 3.2 above. Above.
Above. Above.
Third, private names are not really names. And private language is not really a language.
Private language is not really a language.
Private language is a grammatical illusion. Illusion, I think, is a better way to stop than the previous death and earthquake.
Illusion, but you will have illusions now in the following days, Hans.
Yes, there will be loads 1892.
So it's page 22 in the PDF and page 278 in the printout. Page 278. Page 278. The conclusions. Illusion. Wittgenstein's private.
Let's go for some quotes. On page 275. We find the following at the very last paragraph in the beginning. It's about the different types, or if there is 100 different types, or just one, or a gazillion. And this throws light on the meaning. It's at the very bottom, the last paragraph. On the meaning of remembering the connection right in the future. Could there be private criterions? The diarist wants to keep a diary about the recurrence of a certain sensation. This same problem we discussed from different perspectives is very closely coupled to Platonic ideas. I'd say that Platonism is deeply seated in the idea of private language, or the illusion of it, rather. And the ideal forms are inner forms, although projected outwards. Outwards! So further down we see fourth line from the bottom. There is no way for the diarist to tell whether a future sensation is an instance of this certain sensation or of another certain sensation. He cannot keep the things together, neither apart. There is no singularity, neither there is any plurality. We go to page 276. Next page. I will not take this quote, it's very good. It's from Philosophical Investigations. It's a good training thing to get rid of the private object. But if you go further down on the third paragraph, beginning with suppose, 3 lines just above the next rubric. You need to go up a little bit.
Down, you mean?
Yeah, up in the text and down, yes. The private diarist thinks that his S refers to a private object, a certain sensation. This is actually a nice parallel to The Empire of Science by Roland Barthes. And what he is surprised by in Japan is that inner objects doesn't seem to exist. So he says, in Japan, meaning is just outsideness. So oddly enough, he is a bit trapped in the idea, or at least he was before he ventured to go to Japan. And he saw that it's just surfaces. And I think in the beginning that illusion can prevail, that are just surfaces. And it's not a bad way to approach the subject at all. I think the book is softening up of the too strong convictions or fixations. If we go further down to the next chapter, 3, Wittgenstein on private language in LPE and PL. And here is something to bring back home and remember. It's the 4th line, 2nd sentence. Since the private language consists of sensation names, the question then becomes, whether such names are really names. This turns on the grammar of name. Ponder about that. This is the state of neurology until recently. And that, think of it as this: around us are a lot of things, objects, mirror, banana, a bush, a sea, and so on. And we get sensations from those, call them S1. And we pair them with an inner object at a certain time, call it T1. So that private sensation is paired to the outer sensation. And this is called, sometimes a bit clumsily, representationalism. I don't think it's an apt word. In a way, yeah, sure. But this is much better. Now one really understands the idea of direct perception and naming the things around you from an inner source. The beetle box. On the next page, Wittgenstein concludes, that is not even a name. As you can see on the third paragraph on page 277. From section 3.2 above, we know that the diarist has no criterion of correctness for using S. So S is not really a name. And does not deserve to be called a name, although it looks like a name. This diffuses the idea of a misconception of a private inner world that is cut off from reality, and that inner world connects the inner dots to the outer dots via a very simple maneuver of some sort, which is never explained, ever. Then he mentions an example of green-red to make it even clearer. It's a grammatical rule. It has nothing to do with how the world is constructed. Neither have you have your inner constructions. You have no mechanisms. You have no physical objects. And that is further underpinned on page 278. This would be line 6, 9, or no, 8 it is, the third little paragraph. Private sensations are severed from the physical world. No physical objects, no observable behavior, no inner mechanisms, and no external devices can be utilized by the diarist to tell whether some sensations are of one type or different types. And that would be the mortus private language, I say. Kalle, please come in and join.
Thank you. Let me open the paper that we also that we also study now simultaneously, namely paper by Kelhofer. You remember that we criticized his use of perception.
Oh yeah.
So the point is that Kelhofer's point is that John, the author of the book of Revelation, only perceived that there was persecution, but there was no real persecution. So implicitly, Kelhofer accuses John of private language, while I think, and you think probably also, that Kelhofer himself is making the mistake of private language.
Yeah, that would be, in my case, it would be the latter, as you say. He assumes the private language, or are under rather the illusion of private language. Yeah, definitely. Very good.
But I will not go into Kelhofer now, because it's not our point here. But I would like to discuss the word, so perception and I think and the word illusion are roughly synonyms. Would you agree, Hans?
Yeah, possibly.
Roughly.
I'm open
And
to
I'm
suggestions.
but I want to see how Wittgenstein uses this word. So in philosophical investigations, the word illusion occurs 17 times. So for instance, let me see here about, so it wasn't a share, but some kind of illusion. Let me go to next one. So illusion, all illusions. So let me see how the German gives it. So this is paragraph 96. Täuschung. Yes, I suppose it's more or less like illusion in English. We are under the illusion. Let me see. Grammatical illusions. Let me see also, he uses the word Täuschung here. Okay. So he seems to, okay. So we do have the word illusion here and Täuschungen. So forth. Okay, that's enough, I think, to show that you have it actually in Wittgenstein. But still, I make the heresy, so to say, of criticizing Wittgenstein and lean for the use of illusion or Täuschung. Why so? Let me make a comparison.
Yeah, sure.
Famous Schrödinger's famous cat. So in the superposition, the cat is in 3 states at the same time. It's dead, alive, and both at the same time. So this is the superposition before the observation.
Yeah.
You all agree. But say now that you would go there and say this is an illusion, these 3 states is an illusion, then you are on the wrong path. Because superposition is not an illusion. Okay, it's an illusion, but illusion is a negative term. Because this is a reality. Although in real life we don't see the cat being both dead and alive at the same time. It could be, so because no cat, no human being either, can be 100% alive at the same time. And can be 100% alive, because we are all dying. As both Heidegger and Derrida point out, we are all dying. So there are no living beings that are 100% alive. So I object against the use of illusion, because superposition is not about illusion, because illusion is a negative term. Superposition is very real. Real in the sense that it actually is a quantum physical fact. We have, for instance, light can be both wave and particle at the same time in the superposition. So it's a fact, it's not an illusion. So illusion is a Täuschung in German, is a mistake. But I do get, of course, the point. So in this case, green red would be the superposition. We can actually have things green red, but it's a superposition between the observation, and then it collapses. Then you have only green and red are separate things. So Hans, would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, yeah, you can call green red or the duck rabbit as a superposition, and then in the criterions, you can say it like this: before, when there are no criterions and things have not come in contact with each other, the duck rabbit is in superposition. It's still real. It's
I
implicitly real, but after it come in contact with some sort of criterion use, it becomes a duck or a rabbit.
indeed, indeed. I know in the past months when we have discussed different papers about Wittgenstein, I said, I think here Wittgenstein is doing an error or something like that. I said that a few times. But then I have actually changed my mind when you explained the thing to me or when I read more about the subject, I changed my mind. But here, so I think so far, I think this is the only place where I would disagree with Wittgenstein. I can change my mind later. Perhaps tomorrow I will have changed my mind. But I think illusion is a dangerous term because this is actually we are speaking about superposition. Superposition is very real. We should find a neutral term. So instead of illusion, I propose superposition.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And
And
I think your objections to Wittgenstein's, I think they're quite healthy. So when reading Wittgenstein, it's like you will have objections. I think that is inevitable and even part of the process.
yes, indeed. And I would like to comment on last thing. Wittgenstein was, of course, a child of his generation. Today, I think if he would live today, he would not use words like degenerate because it's not a politically correct term. Because we look like degenerate art that was typical of Hitler.
Yeah. No, of course not.
Let me see if the philosophy investigations, the modern they have updated this, if they have changed the translation, degenerate. Do we have it already here? You have it in German there. Let me see if the English has degenerate then, yes. Yes, you have it in English too, which is logical, of course. You have to respect his politically non-correct term.
Indeed. We must remember that Wittgenstein was an engineer, and that's why he used terms like degenerate. It's a bit like a rusty old thing.
So today I had got two objections. No, I don't care about this, even though it's politically incorrect. I don't care about this. But I think these still two terms that could be used better. Degenerate and illusion are two things that I disagree with. So let's enter Hans.
Thank you very much for participating. Thank you for your great comments, Kalle. And thanks everyone for listening in or watching in. Have a very pleasant morning, day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you.